Hello and welcome to the Field to Futures Exploring Agritourism Opportunities. My name is Abby Bryant and I'm a senior at the Blue Ridge, Virginia Governor's School at Louisa County High School. This is my senior class project for a topic I have tremendous interest in supporting for our community. I want to thank Charles Rawson, Sarah Sharp, and Christy Hopkins with the Virginia Cooperative Extension and Tracy Hale Clark with the Louisa County Chamber of Commerce and the Louisa Ford Foundation for their support. Their support has been invaluable in making this event possible and in helping us highlight the importance of agritourism to our community and local economy. We have put together a 5-part series focused on agritourism, with topics including agritourism in Virginia, connecting with the planning, zoning, and economic development, insurance, liability, and safety, Visit Louisa and the Fermentation Farm Trail, and Braggs and Blunders Agritourism Entrepreneurs. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for supporting the future of our community through agritourism. I'm excited for the conversations ahead and hope you find these sessions both inspiring and informative. Enjoy the workshop.
Thanks, Abby. It's been such a pleasure working with you. So thank you again for bringing this to our community. It's such a valuable asset for our business and our local economy. So this session, before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that if you have questions, we're going to have a question and answer opportunity towards the end, but you can also put your questions in the chat box and we'll make sure that those get addressed. And then we will be sending out this recording for future use and sharing to those that need the resources. We encourage you to look at the whole series as well. So our presenter for this session is covering insurance, liability, and safety issues as it relates to agritourism businesses. We have with us as a special guest, Glynn Goodrich from Virginia Farm Bureau. Glynn is the senior field underwriter for underwriting and policy services. He was raised on a peanut, grain, and hog farm in Southampton County, and he began his career with the Virginia Farm Bureau in January of 1987. Over the years, he's held various roles, including agent and trainer, but he's found his true calling as a field underwriter for over 30 years. This role has allowed him to stay deeply connected to the farming community, working directly with farmers across 23 counties to assess their insurance needs and develop comprehensive protection programs. With extensive experience in the agribusiness operations, Glynn is pleased to share his insights on the growing segment of the farm operations today. So Glynn, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you'll go ahead and share your screen and begin with your presentation. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Are you seeing what we need?
Not yet. Okay, there we go. You're all set, Glynn.
Okay, good deal. All right. Well, I'm very glad to be here to talk about everybody's favorite subject, insurance, and how it relates to your farm and agribusiness. So we will just jump right in. So this, initially, this is not legal advice. So yeah, you need to consult any of your professionals for that. So
Glenn, one thing, your slide did not move forward to the next slide.
It did not.
No.
That is awesome.
That's okay.
Still nothing?
No.
It seems like I'm into the PowerPoint on my end, but it's just not moving.
We can switch it back to my screen and I'll progress the slides if that works for you.
Let's do that. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, there you go. Go right along.
All right. You can go on to the next one then.
You want to be on the legal advice page or the next one?
Go ahead to the next.
There we go.
Okay. So with your new ventures on the farm. Let's go back one. Okay. So you have an increased exposures. So what can you do with those risks? You can either avoid it, you can minimize and make the operation safe. You can transfer the risk to someone else, which would be your insurance company, or you can just live with it, which is probably not the best idea. So, okay. So you get what ifs. Someone gets hurt on your farm or at a farmer's market. Someone becomes ill, or even worse, after eating some of your products. Or what if they allege they became ill after being on your farm because of pesticides or anything else? I mean, it's like no holds barred anymore. So, um, so your liability exposures. You have your premises exposure on the farm. You have products. So whatever you are selling, any activities like Heather mentioned before, whether you've got a wedding venue or you're a roadside stand or something like that, or any services, equipment, animals is a big thing. And then, of course, your employees as well. So, okay. So where does your legal duty come into play? So it depends on the type of visitor you have on your farm. So a trespasser on premises without permission from the owner. Ordinarily, you don't owe any duty to the trespasser except to not injure them intentionally. They generally cannot recover from injury. Let me get something out of the way here. Okay. By reason of any defects or in the premises or contact with random machinery, and the trespasser takes the risk of the place as they find it. So, okay. The next. A licensee is on premises with permission or consent of the owner, for a business purpose carried on by the owner. So generally speaking, the owner is not liable for injuries caused by active negligence or by anything intentional. The owner owes the duty to exercise reasonable care. So if you are going on a farm, you expect to have a safe environment and safe place to be. So, okay. And invitee is on the premises with an express or implied invitation by the owner. So the owner owes the invitee the duty of using reasonable care to maintain the premises in a safe condition. The owner should always warn the invitee of any dangers that may be present. So it's, warn them ahead of time. It's all about doing your due diligence in letting your visitors know if there's anything wrong, or not necessarily anything wrong, but there's anything hazardous outside the ordinary. So, okay. So here's the sign that Heather was talking about earlier, explaining that there is no liability for an injury to or death of a participant in an agritourism activity conducted at this agritourism location if such injury or death results from inherent risk of the agritourism activity. So it's just stating that there are risks on a farm and that they could be present with whatever you're doing, whether it's looking at animals or participating in an activity, and that you are assuming the risk of participating in this activity. Does it exempt you from all liability? I doubt it. But again, it's doing what a prudent person would do, and it's appropriately giving out the information about any risk that may be present. Again, as Heather said earlier, these signs should be posted. You can't have too many. at the entrance, near the activities, where you are paying to go into the property if you're having to pay. So these things, these are places that you can easily see. So, so again, it doesn't relieve the operator from legal liability. It just puts the public on notice, saying that injuries or death could occur based on what you do. And so it's really just it's a warning. So okay. Excuse me. Nothing will prevent or limit the liability of an agritourism professional if the agritourism professional does any of the following: commit an act or omission that constitutes negligence or completely disregards for the safety of the participant, and that act or omission can cause injury or damage or death. If they have actual knowledge or reasonably should have known of a dangerous condition on the property, such as equipment or the propensity of a particular animal that may be dangerous. Like I've been on a farm and a goat tried to get me, and actually somewhat chased me around. So if you know of an animal that may do that, segregate them out from the rest of the animals that your guests are going to be seeing. So, okay. And I can't see that next line on my screen. Okay. So liability waivers they're great, but they're not great. I mean, they generally not legally enforceable. They could discourage any lawsuit or any action, but it's not a fail-safe. So I would always consult with an attorney about what you should do with these waivers and any language needed for them. Okay. Proof of liability coverage verifies that insurance coverage is in force. It should always be obtained from any vendors that are going to set up on your property and that you're doing business with. Make sure that they have coverage in place. And if your property is rented to another a third party, such as for a wedding or something like that, it should be required as a condition for using the property that they get insurance coverage for that. We call it special events coverage. Like they may get coverage for the weekend of the wedding, and so it's another layer of protection for the property owner, and a minimum of $1 million liability limit. Okay. All right. So farm liability insurance. It transfers a portion of the risk to the insurance company. It covers damages caused to anyone on your property, which you could be legally responsible. And very important is it covers the costs to defend you against a lawsuit. So there are 4 things that goes with the liability. There's a duty of care existed, that this duty of care was breached in some manner, and that damages were sustained by the third party, and that these damages were caused by negligence on the property owner's part. Different policies make up the farm liability insurance, and from farmers comprehensive personal liability, general liability, an umbrella policy, a professional liability, workers' comp. You can have equine or event liability, and product liability, and so forth. Okay. So in every policy has an insurance agreement, and that says we will pay those sums that the insured becomes legally obligated to pay as damages because of bodily injury or property damage to which this policy applies. So it's basically your insurance company's responsibility to protect you. So your base policy has you have your premises and operations liability coverage, products liability, and your medical payments coverage. Okay. So your premises and operations liability is for bodily injury and property damage caused by any occurrence arising out of your ownership and maintenance or use of the insured premises or farming operation, such as someone getting injured while they are on your property. Okay. Then you have products liability coverage, and that is your liability for bodily injury or property damage caused by defective products, such as raw produce, baked goods, any goods purchased from a third party that you are reselling at, say, your farmer's market or at your festival. And then there's a policy exclusion for products manufactured or processed by the insured. So if the raw product is altered, there is no products liability coverage under your base policy. So that coverage can be endorsed, or another policy may be required. So anytime a product is changed at all, it voids the product's liability coverage that you have with the policy. So the user of the product or anybody else affected by the use of the product could file suit. The liability attaches to every enterprise in the chain. So from whoever you buy the product from and you're reselling, or your own product and you have it processed in some kind of way and sell it. Even if all you're doing is selling it, and it's a third party product, you can still be brought in because they're going to sue the whole chain. Okay, next. So Virginia does not have strict liability. So strict liability holds people accountable for their actions, even if they did not intend harm. So it is liability without fault. So, and negligence is the grounds for any liability case. Okay. Claims with product liability has grown a lot in the more recent years, as we see more and more, particularly on the farm side, where people are venturing out and selling products that they have processed or changed in some manner. So, and of course, with anything else, the price is going up. So the compensation from these suits is going through the roof. And farm markets, direct sales of farm products exposes the farmers to higher risk, whether the products are provided or they produce their own or are purchased from a third party. So it's the whole chain of where that product starts and where it ends up. It's going to be subject to a lawsuit. So that's where you want to make sure that your coverage is answering to all of that. Okay. So the exclusion, farm liability exclusion, it doesn't apply to bodily injury and property damage from activities related to business of an insured. So the key to the farm policy is that the business is any trade, profession, or occupation whether full-time or part-time, other than farming. So anything other than farming, which is considered to be the production of crops, raising livestock, operation of roadside stands and farm markets, that is primarily for the sale of their own products, but doesn't include other retail activities. So if it's outside of that scope, it could be considered business and therefore not covered. So it'd be other than business, other than farming. So again, that's where your insurance professional can help you. So activities, just like Heather had mentioned in our first session, outside of the definition of farming are excluded. So a lot of agribusiness and agritourism comes under that heading. Animal viewing, corn mazes, pick your own, haunted attractions, event venues for, say, weddings, bed and breakfast, short-term cabin rentals, hay mazes, festivals, camping, and so forth. So coverage can be procured by either endorsement or having a separate liability policy for that. Okay. So the main question for your insurance provider is, how does my policy define farming? Okay. Do any of my agritourism activities fall within that definition, or are they outside of that definition? Okay. And does my policy provide coverage for my products, whether raw or processed? The raw product is going to be covered. Processed may not be. So, and then you have medical payments coverage. And that is third party expenses, medical expenses for bodily injury that's caused by an accident on your premises, and it's paid regardless of fault. I've sometimes called it a goodwill payment. It may ward off a lawsuit. It may not, but it's a small amount of coverage that you can pay, that the insurance company can pay regardless of whether it's the insured's fault or not. And then claims and defense cost coverage. It is tremendously expensive to go to court and to defend a lawsuit. So covered within this is attorney's fees, court costs, filing fees, investigation costs, and so forth. So it's a big benefit to have that cost covered under your liability limits. Other liability insurance, workers' comp for your farm workers or horticultural operations. It's required for more than 3 full-time employees. And then you have umbrella coverage, which gives you liability limits above what your base policy gives you. And it doesn't respond until your liability limits of your base policy is until they're exhausted. And once that happens, your umbrella can kick in. So please read your insurance policy. I know it is not the best reading, but to get some basic understanding of what your policy covers is very important. I've had people say, well, I thought that was covered, but they haven't looked at the policy. And so just be familiar with it. Okay. I encourage you to meet with your agent at least once a year to review your coverage. Things on a farm change, and they can change quickly, and you may get into another activity of some sort, and it's best to stay up to date with your agent on what you have going on. always make your agent aware of what's taking place on the farm. And if you even have an idea of doing something different, I highly recommend consulting with your insurance company to get their take on it and any kind of safety recommendations that they could make before you get started. All right. So your agent can help you with putting your program together to cover your operation, and it's basically what your insurance agent doesn't know can hurt you. So keep them all informed. Insurance companies have other resources that can help you out, from safety inspections, which is some of the things that I do. General safety guidelines and checklists can be provided, and safety guidelines for specific activities and exposures can be given by your insurance company as well. So again, it's very important to get together with your agent and the insurance company to make sure all of your bases are covered. So some things about protecting your operation, like your farm, your entrance and exit, unobstructed visibility. Make sure you can see both ways when you're when your guests are leaving the property. Make sure everything is clearly marked for traffic flow, for parking, signs that lead to parking, and then for entry and for exit, and make sure that your roadways are in good condition and free of potholes and obstructions. Parking areas should be of particular size to accommodate the traffic that you would expect. Again, as I said, clearly marked with signs and free of potholes. And if you are open at night, you need lighting. And then any removal of ice and snow that may be needed. Walkways should be clearly marked and unobstructed. Signs directing customers to different activities should be in place. And very important to have areas that you want off limits to be marked as such, whether it's employees only, keep out, authorized personnel only, as such as that. And then access to hazardous areas such as ponds and lakes or manure storage facilities should be blocked off or have signs, fences, gates, whatever's necessary. The visitors should be kept away from areas where farm equipment is being used. And then any equipment or tools stored away from those areas that customers will be visiting. Customers shouldn't operate or have access to farm equipment, and you should always have an ample number of workers available to oversee the guests. So you don't want to have not enough workers to handle the crowds that you expect. All of your workers should be very aware of what their responsibilities are and what they need to do to keep the public safe. Restrooms, if provided, should be accessible. First aid kits with appropriate supplies should be on hand, and I would make sure that all of your employees or workers know where those first aid kits are located, and emergency phone numbers with that as well. And then your employees need to be trained in the proper and safe operation of any equipment. Age appropriate tasks. Don't send a 10-year-old out to do what an 18-year-old should be doing. So, and then all shields and guards in place on machinery at all times, and then set a good example. If you're working and operating in a safe manner, hopefully your employees will go by that as well. And then develop your liability management plan. Have your team, your attorney, insurance agent, accountants, and buy your liability insurance that will cover your operation, make sure it fits everything that you're doing, and that your agent is aware of all of your activities. And please make safety part of your day to day. So if you get in the habit, it'll stay a habit in keeping things safe. So and then of course other resources that you have: VDEX, your extension agent in your county, and there's a couple of websites that are available: liability insurance facts.com, safeagritourism.org. I have looked at that, and that appears to be a good one too. Okay. And there's my contact information. If I know it was a lot of material. So any questions later that you may come up with, please send me an email, and I'll get back to you and see if I can answer what questions you may have. And are there any questions now?
So much, Glynn. Yeah, I do want to, let's see, we had some questions in the chat, I believe. No. Oh, somebody asked a question: the best place to get signs. Anybody has any recommendations on that? Are there any signs that are kind of pre-made, Glynn, with some of these warning signs, whether it's from VDAX or from insurance agencies or something like that?
You can you can ask your insurance agent if they have access to signs. I was thinking that VDAX had some, but Google has everything.
I gotcha.
Amazon. So I mean, you can get those. I think if you went to Amazon or just Googled it, I think you can get them.
Okay, great. Does anybody
if it's okay, I'll add something there.
Yes.
Because I have run into this. So the best thing to do is actually to make them yourself and go on like Vistaprint or Overnight Prints or one of the or your local sign company, because in that law there are stipulations about the size of the text as well as the color of the text. So I know I had reached out to VDAX in the past. They did not make them anymore.
Okay.
And just said you had to go to your own, get them done yourself. So
great. Well, Sarah, I'll reach out to you and see if you've got any templates. Maybe we can share that with the group. That might be a helpful item.
It's super. You just look for you just Google Virginia agritourism law, and literally you copy and paste from the law and just put it on a sign and make it as big as you can make it and go from there.
All right. Excellent. All right. Well, if you do have a question, you can unmute or you can hit the wave at us. I do want to thank you again, Glynn, for sharing the information with us. Valuable information. Sure. Definitely a lot of things to consider for insurance when you're doing your agritourism business. So as a reminder to everyone, we will be sending a link out for this session, so you can go back and watch it. You will get the contact information for the speakers for each one of our sessions. We do have a series of 5 total sessions, so we do encourage you. I know Glynn referenced Heather's presentation. She is with Virginia Department of Agriculture, so some great information. And then we have 2 more sessions that we're going to record. All of that will be made available on the Chamber website, and we'll circulate it out to all those that are registered. So that concludes this session. We are going to exit out. Our next session will start at 1 o'clock. and hope to see you all there.